Good afternoon, runners, or good morning, depending on where you're watching from. My name is Coach Steve, and this is leading up to United Airlines NYC Half Half coming to you tomorrow live in New York City. I'm here with our specialist from Hospital Special Surgery, Lindsay Holmes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. I'm happy to be here.
So a lot of runners around the world will be coming in today, tomorrow to watch this amazing race. And we're here to talk to us about tips and tricks for race day and kind of race week and a day before the race. So I want to jump to you, Lindsay, with the very first question. In your world, is there anything runners can do now to prepare themselves for the next 18 hours or so before the race starts?
At this point in time, runners really need to trust the process and recognize that the hard work has been put in. So you've done all of the physical preparation to be here and to perform at your highest level tomorrow. So at this point, your job is to relax and mentally prepare for what race day is going to bring. So part of that is potentially reviewing your race strategy and your plan, going over kind of key things that are important to you or that have worked for you, staying hydrated, staying off your feet to the best that you can. Try to rest your tissues, stay loose, stay warm, but also stay relaxed, and really set yourself up for success for tomorrow.
I love that. Reviewing everything, making sure everything's taken care of, check your transportation. It's kind of knocking that last 1% off all of your training leading up to tomorrow. I did forget to mention that, guys, this is an interactive chat. So if you have a question for me or for Lindsay, please put that in the chat. We want to hear from you. I want to know what your training questions are, whether it's race specific or whether it's injury specific. We have physical therapy. Lindsay can help answer all of your race day discomfort, soreness, hopefully can get you to the line as much as possible, feeling strong and confident. With that said, Lindsay, I want to talk about if runners are watching right now and they have maybe a soreness or a discomfort in the lower limbs, could be anywhere. What's the best strategy they can do now and between 7 a.m. tomorrow when they get to the start line?
First and foremost, if someone is struggling with an injury, heeding any advice that you've received from a medical professional in your preparation and going into the race. But if you're still battling a little bit of soreness, you could utilize heat if you're really stiff. You could utilize ice for soreness, gentle mobilization, gentle soft tissue mobilization, nothing too aggressive, because you don't want to further inflame the tissue or aggravate the tissue. Compression is always very helpful. So if you have compression socks or stockings or sleeves or for wherever the area of soreness might be, that's very helpful. Making sure that you're wearing really comfortable and supportive footwear at all times at this point. It has been a little bit nicer recently, so there's that draw or desire to maybe wear flip flops or sandals or something less supportive. So I would advise when you're on your feet, make sure that even if it's um, it feels like it's not the right attire, make sure you're wearing your sneakers, wearing something supportive to help you aid in that tissue recovery.
Those comfort shoes are so important. I've been wearing some New Balance 1080s all week, and I've noticed when I put them on in the morning, it just feels a lot better because of the cushion. End of the day, I'm really excited to get them off, just once again, lay in my bed, but putting that fresh pair of shoe on, a high comfort shoe, whatever you are used to, is really good for recovery. I love it, and I enjoy it every time I put them on. As far as what, nutrition, I know everyone should kind of use what they did in their training. They should trust what they worked in the long runs. Any kind of key things we should look for in nutrition tonight and maybe tonight and tomorrow morning?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it, Steve. The first rule of thumb is always stick with things that you know have worked well for you. That hopefully at this point in time, everyone has a good understanding of their bodies and foods that maybe cause them more distress than others. So being very cautious and selective of the things that are going to support you. But the things you want to keep in mind when really following nutrition plans is making sure that you're selecting foods that are easily digestible. They don't take extreme amounts of energy to break down. So, for example, juiced foods and blended juices, those are going to be easier to digest. They're already partially digested. Selecting easy to digest carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Sticking away from artificial sweeteners if possible. We want to maintain hydration. We want to maintain proper electrolytes, but hopefully getting them through sources that are as clean as possible and not going to potentially cause our bodies distress when we start to call upon it to exercise all of that energy. So those are some key points in terms of nutrition to bear in mind as you're getting ready for the race day.
What's the best way for runners if you're coming from out of town? We're used to maybe having something that we make at home, but we don't have our kitchen with us because we're staying in a hotel. How do we figure out what to eat tonight and tomorrow morning?
So, there can be this draw. It's very enticing to be in a new city and especially if you don't get to visit New York very often, to go to some restaurants that you've had on your list and want to check them out. I would advise against that unless it's right up your alley and consistent with what you've typically had. So doing a little bit of research and finding places that are going to offer options for you that are they're consistent with what you've been selecting. And even if it means just going to a natural food store or a grocery store to obtain some of the items that you're used to, or selecting a restaurant that is going to serve the foods that work well for you. Also trying to make sure that you do so in a timely manner so that you have access to the food you're not trying to get a reservation at 10 o'clock tonight or running around last minute to try to obtain the foods that you need for the morning. So those would be kind of some of my primary tips. And hopefully you have a little bit of time after the race that if you do have your sights set on one of those restaurants or locations that you've been really desiring to go to, that you do so after the fact.
That's the best time to enjoy New York City restaurants because you're right, there are a ton of places to eat around here and they're all really good, but experience them after the race or a few days ago. Hopefully you had a chance to experience them, but tonight and tomorrow morning are not the time to experiment at those places. Lindsay, we have some shout outs from runners who are watching us. I want to give them thanks for watching us. We're going to pull it up here at the bottom of the screen. We have Edgar saying, hello, good luck tomorrow and enjoy your race. Thank you, Edgar. We also have Tatiana says, good luck, everyone, and good luck to you if you're running. And then we also have coming in a question from Nora, is going to yoga today a good or a bad idea? I'll start, and I'll definitely want Lindsay's your input on it. My advice would be, have you done yoga before a long run in the past? If the answer is you've always done yoga before a long run in the past, and you're going to do the same style of yoga and the same poses you did before your long runs, and it's worked out well for you, go for it. If you have not normally done yoga before a long run, then I would scratch that from today and rest up. Now, Lindsay, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with what you've said. I would add on that if it's hot yoga, I would stay away from that because that could you run the risk of losing too much fluids and being a little bit dehydrated going in tomorrow. If you can modify, and again, just Steve, to your point, if you're used to doing yoga and you're comfortable with it and you feel better, but if you can modify so that you're not expending too much energy, but you're just getting that postural positioning, the breathing, some of the meditative practice of it, without going into the depths of some of the positions and poses. I think that there's value in that. Again, if it's served you well in the past, but I would back it off so that you're not doing an aggressive class of yoga that you're not used to.
Awesome, great tips. We have another question. Let's pull it up here. Same runner here. What are some examples of easily digestible carbs? I'll let you jump in here.
Yeah, no problem. So typically your top ones would be white potato, sweet potato, white rice, yams. Those are examples of very easily digestible carbohydrates.
Awesome, really good tips. Hopefully, once again, you're using things that you used in training that work well. I like to say to runners, if it's boring, it's usually good the night before the race. Nothing exotic, nothing fancy. You want something simple, boring, that you're used to. And once again, it's what works for you, not works for your best friend or for Lindsay here, for instance. It's whatever works for you in your training. So guys, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat. We want to take them one by one throughout the chat. I want to come back to a question my own question for you, Lindsay. Sleep. We've talked about it a little bit here throughout the week. Runners usually are very excited, so it's hard for them to sleep tonight. Maybe we're up a lot going to the bathroom. We're up early because we got to be at the start line tomorrow really early. How should we approach sleep tonight? What's the best way to get to sleep? How much sleep should we be getting? What is your take on that?
Yeah, it's completely natural and normal to have some anticipatory nerves and have some anxiety going into the race. And also, at this point in time in the training cycle, most runners have been tapering, so we haven't been expending quite as much energy, and so you have a little bit of pent up energy in addition to that anticipation, and that could be really disruptive to a normal night's sleep. So you want to set yourself up for success just like anything else. So really practicing some meditation, but also this is a great opportunity for visualizing your race. So closing your eyes and picturing everything from the moment that you wake up through all the way to the finish line. When you wake up, you're getting yourself dressed, whatever foods you're going to have, getting yourself to the start in enough time. Maybe, picture yourself waiting in line to use the restroom, all the way up to how you're going to feel when you start the race. And then even going through different barriers or obstacles you might encounter during the race and how you will approach it, how you'll overcome it. That can be very calming to the mind. It might sound like it would be more anxiety provoking to consider the obstacles you might encounter, but in fact, it really prepares and calms your mind because you're evolving your strategy, you're reviewing your strategy, and you're feeling really, really prepared to go into that race. You want to give yourself enough time so that if you are having difficulty falling asleep, that by the time you do fall asleep, you have a reasonable amount of sleep. And then I think really what can also help us is laying everything out for the next morning. So if you have everything ready, everything kind of laid out, you're not sitting there thinking like, oh gosh, what if I forget that? What if I forget that? What if I need to remind myself that? You've already put it all out in front of you and where it needs to be. So and you can rest that I'm prepared for this. I've done the work. I'm ready. I just need to envision and visualize the day and get some rest.
As you bring up a good point, I've seen a lot of my Instagram feed today, the runner's flat image where you have the singlet on top, the race bib on it, the socks, the shoes, the gels, the water bottles, everything's laid out. An MTA card sometimes there that's filled up already. So everything you need is laid out there, and then there's no thought of, oh, I missed that, which is a really good tip.
Yeah, anything that can, resolve any of that anxiety is very helpful. So any preparation you can do calms your mind for sure.
That's great. I love it. Let's talk about when we get to the race. We're in the corrals or the start village. The anxiety, the nerves really start. You might be in a later wave, and so you're hearing other horns go off for other races. You get nervous. Obviously, nerves are good to an extent. We want to use that for good because it means you're doing something important. But how are ways we can calm the nerves enough so we can achieve our goals?
Yeah, it's a great question because you really have those pre-race jitters really until you start moving and until you're actually in the race and can settle in and calm yourself and I've prepared for this. So a few things: practicing breathing, maybe even reviewing your race strategy in your mind again. Remind yourself that you deserve to be here. You've done all of the work, and also remind yourself that this is fun and we do this, sometimes it feels like torture, but it's a lot of fun too. And we want to enjoy the moments of the day. So finding that space to really be present and say, I've really been looking forward to this. I'm going to take it all in. Positive self-talk. Don't let the self-doubt creep in. Don't start thinking about the workout you missed or, if only I had run a couple extra long runs or whatever it might be. There's no value in going there. So really having the discipline to calm your mind and be positive toward yourself and tell yourself, I've done this, I'm ready, I'm prepared, and I'm excited, and everything's going to be okay.
I love that positive self-talk. That helps me in the corrals, especially knowing what goals I've had in the past achieved, and this is a new goal I'm just going to check off and achieve this goal in the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. So I love that. My last question for you, and we know we have a lot of questions from runners out there, but my question is, what is your advice to stay warm out there? We were talking before the show started. You've done a lot of half marathons, big races out there, other marathons. Ways to stay warm in the corrals on a normal chilly morning. It's going to be like 40 degrees or so. How do we stay warm in the corrals before the race starts?
Yes, I have done a lot of races, and I can't say that I've ever been too warm. I've definitely been too cold. So I think going back to that preparation, it's making sure that you have adequate layers. You rather have too many layers than too few. So prepare to have some layers that you're willing to part with. If you have some hand warmers, I found that to be really successful in hanging on to those just to keep my hands warm. And if you need to, within your shoes as well. So any toe warmers or hand warmers can be very helpful. you don't want to be expending that extra energy trying to keep your body warm. So that's key. But then also making sure that you're moving around a bit. There can be this perception that warming up or doing dynamic movements is going to somehow take away from your success or take away your energy for success in the race. I would argue that it's the opposite. If you don't maintain that movement and that warmth and increase your heart rate, increase the blood flow through your body, keep the pliability in the tissues throughout your body, you're really risking an injury or risking not having as effective as a run. So don't be afraid to move. And so finding that balance of movement, maintaining your warmth, and then resting in between those moments too, while you're kind of getting ready to race.
What type of warm-ups should we be doing out there? Is it simple things like high knees, butt kicks, or are we talking about strides, mile warm-up? What would you advise for the runners out there?
So this varies depending on the runner and depending on the athlete and what things have worked for you in the past. So I wouldn't advise Googling a new dynamic warm up tonight and employing it tomorrow. But if you typically jog around before a race, that's a great way. Easy jogging, light movement. Again, you're just wanting to raise your heart rate. So even if you're kind of jogging in place, if you're in the corral leading up to it, but you can do some light high knees, butt kicks. Again, if that you're used to doing that, some arm swings, some hip swings. Some people like to do little jumping jacks or light jumping up and down. But anything, again, that's going to increase and circulate the blood through your body, increase your heart rate, all of that is going to help you have a better start to your race. I'd also recommend kind of, different athletes, depending, tend to have mantras. And some people, it's the same mantra that they use always in every competition, in every situation. Others, it might vary depending on the day. So if you're finding it hard to relax, maybe you pick a few words and relax is one of them. Maybe it's breathe, maybe it's patience, because maybe you're an individual who historically goes out too fast every time. And so you remind yourself, be patient. You can do this, patience, take it easy. Maybe it's smile to remind yourself, I'm having fun. This is fun. So some things that are going to resonate with you and that are going to work for you, that if you call upon them at different points in the race, you remind yourself, and it can just, while you're getting ready, while you're at the start line, while you're warming up, it can help focus and key in your mind, and then you can call upon it later as well.
I love that. That just have fun mantra really hits me. Sometimes you get so focused on your goal, whether that's a PR, whether that's a fast race, or it all comes down to everyone out there should be having fun. Even I think the pro athletes, they do it while they get paid to do it. They're also having fun. It's your job, but it's the job they enjoy, the job they love, and you have fun out there. We chose to do this, so it's all about having fun out there and enjoying the moment and running through New York City, Manhattan Bridge, Times Square, places you just can't run any day.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun just to be out there. Lindsay, we have some great questions from runners. I want to pull those up. Michelle says, any advice for a cranky hip flexor? There's no injury. I'm just really feeling it. Should I focus on strength training or strengthening or stretching?
So, Michelle, thank you for the question. And I'm sorry that you're having a cranky hip flexor. It's always annoying to have those lingering issues. My first advice would be that it's very difficult for me to guide you as to what you should select without having a formal evaluation or without really seeing what's going on, and understanding what might be contributing to the symptoms you're experiencing. So I would advise to check in with a professional just to make sure that, sometimes the hip, it could be coming from your back. There's a number of things that can be contributing to it. So at this point in time, I wouldn't strengthen it the day before a race. And oftentimes we see, this is a generalization in runners, it's not necessarily weakness within a hip flexor. It's often other mechanical components or contributions. So it might be weak glutes in general. And a lot of times our hip abductors are a culprit to some discomfort that we feel within other areas of our body, whether it's knees or hip flexors or wherever else. So that tends to be something we evaluate and look at. I would say anything you can do leading into the race just to kind of calm any of the crankiness down. So if ice helps it, if light stretching, I wouldn't aggressively stretch it. if light tissue mobilization helps kind of ease some of your discomfort, I would guide you towards something like that. Also, if within your long runs in the past, when it started to really crank up, you found ways where you modify your gait or stop and stretch a little bit to help ease it off. Maybe shortening your stride a little bit so you're not going into too much hip extension might help just protect it. So those would just be some of the things from strategies to potentially incorporate tomorrow when you're in the race to hopefully give yourself a successful race.
Really good advice. Michelle, keep in mind, we also will have medical stations throughout the course that even if you go in those, they can help you stretch or ice it. You are still in the race. You can you can have the medical staff help you out and get back on the course 5 or 10 minutes later to complete the race. So you might adjust your goals, obviously, due to the injury, but that team is there for you almost every mile or every 2 miles. You can stop in there and they can, stretch it out, give you ice, warmth, heat, whatever they think is best for you to help you finish the race. And then afterwards, like Lindsay said, you can find a more secure care with your doctor afterwards. And the next question we have is, Rosalind, I'm seeing a lot of people do shakeout runs today. Is that required? I did a recovery run yesterday following NYRR plan. Am I missing an important step? So I'll take it from a coaching perspective, and I definitely want Lindsay to chime in here just from your experience as an athlete and also from a PT side. Shakeout runs they're not needed, they're not required. I use them more for shaking out the nerves that I do. We were going to do one this morning with our coaching lab runners, but we actually just pulled it back a little bit. But it was more to shake out the legs. A lot of us are nervous. We want to make sure we can still do it. We might remind our body that we can still run easy. And also maybe with other people, you have a conversation about their efforts. You can build confidence. That visualization that Lindsay talked about earlier is important. And you can start to visualize your morning or the race, how you're going to feel afterwards. But it's just shaking out the legs. But no, it's not required. And it's not an important step, but some people do enjoy it as a way, once again, calm their nerves, and sometimes with some strides afterwards just to hit that race pace one more time, and so we know that we can do it. Well, what are your thoughts on that, Lindsay?
Yeah, I completely agree. It really depends on how you're feeling too. Sometimes if you are feeling, whether it's the anxiety and anticipation is kicking in, it can help calm your nerves. It doesn't have to be running. It really, especially if you're trying to protect your joints or trying to protect some sore tissue, you could hop on a bike and just lightly spin for 5, 10, 15 minutes. You could get on an elliptical so that you could have a low impact activity that really the goal is to, just like I said, warm up on the race morning, is to have that release of increase of your heart rate, increase circulation, release some tension in any of the tissue that's throughout your body, flush the muscles out. Sometimes it's really helpful if you have some remaining soreness to just do a low impact activity for 10 or 15 minutes. It helps just flush the system. And then you put your compression on and you relax and put your feet up, and it might just help you to feel a little bit better.
Love that. Really good question, though. Next one we have coming in from Ferris. I'm doing the virtual half. Do you suggest that I do it at the same time as a physical half? Suggestions for a flat 13-mile course. Not sure where you live for a flat 13-mile course. We'll assume New York City for this conversation. If you're looking for a flat course, you can definitely look in the West Side Highway. Most of the West Side Highway is pretty flat. If you go very far north, it gets hilly, but running between like Lower Manhattan and then 70, 80, 90th Street is pretty flat, which you can do 6 up, 6 back, and that will give you about 13, or maybe 6.5. We'll give you that 13. That's a nice flat one. A lot of people, I know there's some restrictions on which tier you are for the virtual half. You can do it the day of or a day before. So check to make sure you're following the right rules leading into the virtual half. Good luck. I think we have one more coming in here. We have another one from Roseanne. I want to wear an extra layer at the beginning of the race. Can I wear my bib on a singlet under my top layer? Definitely dress warm. Lindsay talked about that earlier. You'll be nice and warm, warmer the better out there. But yes, the race bib should be on the shirt you plan to finish in. So if I'm going to finish in this shirt right here, and if I have a hoodie over it, I want to put my race bib on this shirt. So when I take off my hoodie, mile 0 or 1, I still have my bib on me. So keep that in mind. You need to have that bib visible during the 13.1 miles of the course, so we make sure all runners along the course have that race bib and there's no bandits along the course. Looks like we have another question coming in here. Is there a time limit for this race? So the great thing about this course is the finish line is not on a public street. While 95% of the course is on a public street, the finish line is in Central Park, so we can keep that open a long, long time. There is what's called a sweep vehicle that will start the race after the last runner starts the race at about a 13:45 per mile pace. So the idea of that is the vehicle that's going to drive at that pace throughout the course, and when they get to such as an aid station, that's a sign for that aid station to start slowly breaking down. It's not going to be, once that vehicle crosses, they're going to open the road. They're going to make sure that everything's taken off the street. The water station takes many, many minutes to close down. They're going to gradually open the streets. And then if you're still on the road, they'll have runners go to the sidewalk along the course to finish the race. But there will be spectators out there cheering you on, and Central Park will be open. And once again, it is a gradual, slow opening. Think about, what's in the FDR highway. We're going to open that slowly so those runners are not on it. And the water stations are cleared from the course. So we're going to be everyone to the side of the road safely. Going to Times Square, you just be moved to the side. Once you get into Central Park, that last mile, you'll be fine to run all of Central Park. And that finish line will be open with a lot of staffers from NYRR and volunteers and spectators cheering for you guys to give you your medal. And we got another question coming in here. Let's see. Told we have one more. Let's see. There it is. Question, any good tips for glute pain during the race? I'll toss this one to you, Lindsay.
Yeah, so it's tricky. I think it really depends on what type of pain you're talking about. If you need to, it's always better. If you're in a significant amount of pain, it's always better to stop and be cautious versus pushing yourself through and forcing a finish and potentially risking more time out of the sport that you love and the activities that you love. So as Steve mentioned, there are medical tents along the way where if it's really bothering you and you need to stop in, I would do so. Otherwise, wherever you can protect your gait, if you need to adopt a walk run style, if that gives you some relief, you can certainly do that. If you have a particular stretch that gives you some relief and buys you more distance, and it's comfortable and safe to do so, I would just encourage you to do that. Whenever we're struggling with pain or any type of injury or discomfort, we do have to regroup and recognize that we might not be able to achieve the same goal that we may have set forth when we originally went on this path. So I would just encourage you to be smart. And there are other races. So if it doesn't work out, it's okay. And there's plenty of opportunity to regroup, rehab, and then get back out healthier and stronger in the future. But it's dependent on the symptoms and the level of symptoms that you're experiencing. So it's a difficult and personal question. I wish you well. I hope that everything goes okay though.
Awesome. Great questions. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for joining us today. Guys, that is it for the show. Don't forget, you need to head to the experience to pick up your race bib if you've not done that. Race bibs will not be handed out at the NYRR Run Center, so please head over to Center 415. That is where the experience is. It is located at 415 Fifth Avenue, around 3738th Street. That is where you absolutely must get your race bib. You could not pick up your race bib race morning as well, so head there today if you're not. We'll be there till 6 p.m., and we hope to see you there. And good luck tomorrow at the United Airlines NYC